This is good, yes.
Huh?
Memphis took E-Day.
What was that impression?
There was no impression.
Oh, hello there. You snuck up on us all. Thank you for joining us today. I want to talk a little bit about Louis Rees-Zammit. I have some takes, believe it or not, and then we are going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to try to get Maddie to take off his hat and let that curly hair flow. Let's go.
It's not.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
It's an extremely professional edition of the Casey Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. I am here with Matthew Lane. And Matthew, I want to wish a happy draft day to you, my friend.
Listen, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm having a lot of fun. I love the NBA draft. It's so much fun to watch as a more casual fan because you can kind of cruise through 30 players in about 60 minutes on YouTube and get a pretty good idea for everybody. And it's not like a downplaying. It's just, they're all just young and athletic and working on their shot for the first 5 years in the NBA. So it's just a lot of fun. And so I'm sitting here watching my Minnesota Timberwolves trade up for old Dilly Dilly here in the top 8. That's a lot of fun. Get some shooting around our guy Kent. I know you had some fun watching this draft as well. So it's a good time.
And as we did during the NFL draft, we will be leaking every single pick of the 2024 NBA draft as they happen on this show. And yes, the Minnesota Timberwolves have indeed traded for Rob Dillingham in a trade up to pick 8. Zach Edey going number 9 to the Memphis Grizzlies, an absolute monstrous pick for them. Going top 10 is something, but in this draft, that is to be expected. But anyways, thank you all so much for joining us today. We do appreciate you. We are going to do our season preview as we've been doing every single week. But I did kind of want to start the show with this. Sure. Louis Rees-Zammit. I don't know if I'm ready to. I don't know if I need to apologize, but if I'm being honest with you, when this whole thing went down and we saw the athletic profile of Louis Rees-Zammit, very intriguing, 23-year-old kid, rugby background. I just said, man, he's got a long way to go. He's got a long way to go. You saw some of the clips of him. You saw, some of those, cut-ups of him trying to run routes and all that stuff. And from an offensive perspective, I still do not hold any level of great optimism that we will see a kid like Louis Rees-Zammit. But man, the more I think about it and the more you hear coming from Dave Tobe about Louis Rees-Zammit, and this is a quote from Dave Tobe. I'm reading this from an SI article from Jordan Foote. Louis has done above and beyond what I expected. He can kick field goals. He can kick off. He can be a kickoff guy for us. He's every bit as good as Justin Reed is at moving the football and stuff like that on kickoffs. And he's really working hard at the returner job. I've got him in there as a starter right now so he can get as many reps as he can. He's a student of the game. He comes in after practice. He wants to be great, and he's a great athlete. Yes, he is. He's a professional athlete. This is one of the best rugby players in the history of the world. Not in the world right now, not the history, in the world currently. And he drops what he's doing to come and become an NFL player. And I did not hold any real level of optimism about Louis Rees-Zammit. But the more I've thought about it, some of the quotes that have come out, him getting first team reps in the kick return game, the special teams value Louis Rees-Zammit possesses it might wind up pushing him over the edge. It might wind up giving him an opportunity to make this roster. I'm not saying that he will, but I hold a belief that there's a chance he can more than I have, I think, at any point. So I'm starting to wonder if I'm buying the Louis Rees-Zammit stock a little bit right now.
Real question. Do you think that the Chiefs are doing the United States a solid by trying to get a gauge of the overseas football skill set, seeming they just lost the under 20 football match with Japan 41-20? Do you think this is advanced scouting for the whole country by the Chiefs?
There's a chance that this is it. They really might be trying to get a leg
how
up
does the
here.
States lose to another country? And I get it, they're not sending their best players over because nothing's guaranteed in football. So anybody with real college, a college or pro career is not going to go sign up and play this game. But come on, you're playing other teenagers from Japan and you're going to lose your own game. Like you call it football. Well, the other rest of the country like makes up some other name for it because they have football already, and you're going to lose that. Like that's a bad look, United States. Like you gotta fix that. As far as Reese Lightning goes, though, I don't know what to make because like I see the point you're coming from, but you already said it right there. Justin Reed provides I'm a position player that can kick the football already. Like he already has that. So do you need to add another player in that role? Dave Tobe's come out and talked about how their top 2 returners right now are going to be Nico Remigio and McCole Hardman. So like he's not the number 1 returner. He's not the number 1 position kicker, let alone the number 1 kicker. It's hard to find a role for him that makes a lot of sense other than he can kind of be the number 2 guy or the number 3 guy at a lot of different stuff, mostly on special teams. And maybe that is enough to get a role with the new special teams rules. Maybe that will be enough. I don't know if that's kind of where you think he locks into a spot here.
I'll get there. Yeah. So like, that's the thing that's keeping it in consideration even more for me. And it's just all these changes to the kickoff rules and basically how special teams is going to be valued. And we know that Dave Tobe has had a lot of influence over the roster when it comes to, the bottom of the roster. He's going to get some input so he can get some valuable players on special teams to be at the bottom of this roster. And maybe you don't want Justin Reed kicking off consistently. Maybe you want him focusing on defense. So you've got a guy that has a versatile skill set. I think there's been a quote out there that they even have a play in place with Louis Rees-Zammit right now on special teams. I just start adding all this stuff together, and I just wonder if the Chiefs are going to get a little bit weird and devote a roster spot to a special teams only player because of the versatility he provides, because of the, ability to, rugby tackle, which the hip drops coming out of, the hip drops going away. I'm not ready to put him there, but I'm starting to wonder if the chances of him actually breaking the roster and making the 53 are way better than I ever kind of anticipated. And I'm starting to at least consider it a little bit differently than I think I was when it first happened. And as this summer has kind of gone along, just more thinking about the rules and the way that Dave Tobe has talked about him and all those things. It's piquing my interest more than it ever has. You couldn't be more muted, but I will say while Maddie's unmuting, with the 10th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Utah Jazz have selected Colorado's Cody Williams, brother of Oklahoma City Thunder guard Jalen Williams. Anyways, please continue.
Yeah, no, you're good. I like that. I was really just letting it breathe so you could get that pick in there. We were waiting for the Bulls to make a pick next. I think you have been a little bit more resilient to Reese Lightning making this team than I have been, or Craig, who was doing okay when he was still on here, was during this tenure. I think that we were a little bit more open to him making it as a returner and or as a special teams only player than you were. And then like having a role, and then him having kind of like a role as like a third or not even a third, a fourth running back in certain spots. So it's nice to see you coming around. The problem is I think I'm going the other way, and it's of no fault of his. It's just that I hear Dave Tobe talk.
This is just you. I say something, you got to go the other way.
I hear Dave Tobe talk, though, right? I hear Dave Tobe talk, and not only did he say that other guys are the lead returners, but he mentioned 2 smaller, faster kind of guys. As there's like he clearly, at least as of right now, isn't envisioning this kick return position becoming a bigger running back type of body like LRZ has. And not that means he can't take the role, doesn't say anything about that. It's just, I thought that was probably the most clear-cut avenue. But if the Chiefs are seeing that they maybe want speed and not necessarily a running back type back there, I think that does kind of limit his usefulness, so to speak, for them right away. And then now we're talking about a guy that they would keep on the roster because he's going to run down and make tackles, because he can be the third emergency kicker, the third or fourth emergency returner. I start to get a little bit of hesitation. Now, I'm not ruling it out. Like, I think that he's a good athlete, young player. I think all this matters. I just do happen to wonder what will it look like this year? What would his role be? How are they going to get him on the field as an actual playing snaps versus just being like an insurance policy for other guys getting hurt or not fulfilling their job?
I have a hard time seeing him find an offensive role, just point blank. Like
For sure.
and that's where it is for me is like I struggle to find an offensive role for him. But I'm just starting to wonder just because I I don't know if and we're not going to have the best pulse on this until the regular season. I think as these teams are working through the rules and working through how to, how to go through the special teams process, they're going to have a better pulse on how problematic this could be for them, when it comes to giving up explosive plays, when it comes to needing guys to do this or that. Like they're going to have a better idea. I think, I watching Louis Rees-Zammit change direction and watching, seeing the results of some of his agilities when he was doing them for the, if you look at his relative athletic score, there's some blind spots there in his athletic profile where I think the change of direction stuff, but if it's a straight line kind of return situation, there's some value there. When there's the kickoff, if he can tackle a little bit, if he can do some of those things, they might make an exception. And I was looking through the roster a little bit, and like if you're wanting to look through, where maybe the Chiefs could potentially find a roster spot, I think it actually would be on offense. Do they keep 3 running backs instead of 4? And they've kept 4, and they've had 4 on their roster at times they've had 4 on their roster in the last couple of years that at times during the season. 6 wide receivers. Do you go down to 5? These are 9 offensive linemen instead of 10. I mean, it would have to be on the offensive side of the ball if they're going to try to keep someone like Louis Rees-Zammit on the roster.
Was a related question, right? If the Chiefs take 7 wide receivers, is there room for 4 running backs? Like you're kind of talking about, they're even going up. We're even gotten here from Fairlay. Are they going to go up to 7 wide receivers? Again, I think they had 7 last year, right? And like, so this year you would expect to have a little bit more stability in that room this year than you had last year, just because you did go get Hollywood Brown, who you can play. You know what Rashee Rice is capable of now. You still brought back McCole Hardman, that you know what he's capable of. You spent a round 1 pick on where like you should have a little bit more stability at the top. So you maybe, instead of having 1 or 2 wide receivers that you know what they provide and then 5 guys that you're trying to figure out, you now have like 4 guys or 5 guys that you know what they have. And then it's just a 1 or 2 spots. So like maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7, but can they afford to go with 11 skill position players? Not even including tight ends. Like, they're keeping 3 tight ends. So can they bump up, just in general, can they bump up the skill positions right now? How many skill positions are they going to keep? Is it going to be 13, 14?
I think it's 13. And it's because they don't keep a fullback anymore. That's helping that's helping kind of that 4 running back spot too, right? So, when I was doing my 53-man projection a couple weeks ago, I did 4 running backs, 6 receivers, 3 tight ends, 10 offensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks. Like that was the makeup of the roster. So you could, if it's the 4th running back, the 6th receiver, the 3rd or the 10th offensive lineman, like, hey, maybe there is a spot to try to keep a special teams only player if you believe in the versatility and the value that he provides. Are the Chiefs going to try to be a team that is innovative and hits the ground running? If that's it, maybe it's something like that where maybe this is where Louis Rees-Zammit fits in. So I don't know. It's worth paying attention to me.
We also got one more.
Oh, go.
No. This one was from Randy as well. If Louis Rees-Zammit goes on the practice squad, another team will sign him to their 53-man roster. 49ers were further down his visit list. So yes, this could happen, right? Like if the Chiefs try to put him on the practice squad, another team could offer him an actual 53-man like active roster contract, and he's probably going to take it, right? Or they could offer him a contract to play on their practice squad as well. Those are definitely options. But if I'm looking at it from his standpoint, I'm an international player who's learning, NFL football for the first time. I'm already getting introduced to a very difficult playbook and trying to figure it out while these rules and the special teams are changing and everyone's trying to figure that out. Am I really ready to risk going to another team's practice squad because I got practice squad? Like the lateral move would make no sense. A team would have to be willing to put him on their 53-man roster. And how many teams are willing to put a guy that nobody has seen play any football, like not even like college football? Like they haven't played him play college. He's played, I understand, overseas, but like they haven't seen him play real football in the NFL in the United States. Why would a team sign him immediately to a 53-man contract? So I do think that risk I would be willing to take. Like if I'm the Chiefs, I'd be willing to take him, and he doesn't count as a practice squad spot if he's going through the international pathway to the Chiefs practice squad. Bonus.
I think it would be, and I think, yeah, you're talking about a team wanting him to essentially be a special teams only player. So someone would have to really like the special team snaps that they've seen out of him in a limited capacity to put him on their 53-man roster if they are able to let him slip by. I'm way less dismissive than I've ever been of the idea of it, and I think I'm not going to be totally stunned if he comes out, plays special teams at a really high level, and that gets him an opportunity on the 53-man roster. So I am more intrigued by him than I think I ever have. And with the 11th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls have taken Matas Bucelis, NBA G League Unite.
Nailed it.
Yeah. All right, let's get
Thunder
into
on the clock.
The Thunder are on the clock.
Unfortunately.
And Dalton Connect is available. I am a Thunder fan, so Dalton Connect would be kind of fun here. Not gonna lie. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Chiefs will play the Monday Night Football Week 9. Matthew Lane, tell me what you think the quality of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster is.
I mean, it's better than it. No. Okay, it's hard. It's better than it looks like on paper at first glance. You look at the Bucs roster and you start to poke a few holes in it because they have some veteran guys. I think a lot of us remember the Bucs roster 2-3 years ago when they were competing for the Super Bowl at top Brady, and how many guys seemed like they were kind of hanging on by a thread, how many veterans they had. But I think they've actually done a pretty good job of replacing a lot of guys. They've done a lot of good jobs of drafting players they can develop, getting their own young guys that are already in the building to climb up. So yeah, I'm not saying it's a perfect roster, don't get me wrong, but like they have talent in the wide receiver room that they continue to add to year after year in the draft. They've brought in a lot of different tight ends that are all more singular focused. They're all kind of like role players, but they all are competent at their role. They somehow squeezed out solid play out of Baker Mayfield last year, and they're hoping that they're going to come back and do that again. They've had a lot of turnover on the offensive line. So even when you flip over to defense, a lot of turnover in the cornerback room, and that's probably their weakest position right now. What they have lost, Carlton Davis, and they lost Sean Murphy-Bunting. Like they've lost a lot of guys out of that room over the years, but they still have those safeties holding it down with Antoine Winfield. They brought in Jordan Whitehead has been there. So I think it's a good roster overall. I don't know if it's great, but it's good. They don't have a ton of holes, and a lot of the positions that I think were strengths 2-3 years ago, they may have lost older veterans, but they've kind of done a pretty good job of replacing them with some younger guys.
I think it's a pretty good roster. I do. I think it's a really sound team offensively up front. They've got a pretty good offensive line. They got good receivers. Quarterback, they're kind of playing the game that I think some teams kind of put themselves in a position to is, you gotta play with a game manager, with a mid-level quarterback. And then they've done a lot of investing in the defensive line over the last 5-6 years. I mean, that's been one of the hallmarks of Jason Light's time there. So they've got a lot of defensive line talent added there. Yes, they've definitely lost some players, in the secondary, but Zion McCollum's been okay. Jamel Dean's been solid, and they've got good safety play as well. So I do actually think that this is a pretty capable roster that they've got. This is one of those teams, though, it comes back to the quarterback too, right? I don't think this is one of those teams that is so well run and so well built that they can play with a quarterback that sits in that middle tier and expect to really make a serious run at a Super Bowl. But I think this is a team that can make the playoffs consistently. I think this could be the best team or one of the best teams in the NFC South that is actually competing for a playoff spot. Then you see what happens. I think this is the kind of talent on that roster relative to the rest of the NFC South. So I do think this is a team that can definitely compete.
Yeah, I mean, it's just stuff like hitting on Luke Gadecki to go from an interior offensive lineman to being a competent right tackle. Like that kind of move right there. Not only does it allowed them to move Tristan Wirfs to left tackle that replaced Donovan Smith, but they essentially got better at tackle by both those guys being able to slide to those spots. And then Brent Bredesen and then Cody Mock they brought in last year. Now they add Grant Barton to that unit. Like they did a good job of turning over an offensive line that was once a strong point. Then you look at wide receiver, and yeah, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans are getting a little bit up there in age. They bring Evans back because he's going for like his 800,000 yard season in a row, but they draft Trey Palmer last year and Raheem Jarrett. And then this year they come back and draft Jalen McMillan. Like they just do a really good job of identifying veteran positions that they have good players at, and then getting guys to come in and replace those guys. You even look at linebacker. They lost Devin White, trash talking over at linebacker to free agency because some team wanted to pay him a lot, but they got KJ Britt in there last year and he played better than Devin White did last year for them. So like they've done a really good job of replacing guys before they've needed to, like having guys already on the roster kind of ready to go. So I think they've done that's how this team, I think, has stayed with a very competent roster. And Kent, your Oklahoma City Thunder have made a great pick.
They have, and we'll tell you about that right after this break.
Teasing the Thunder?
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Thanks, everybody, hanging out with us today. We are breaking down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Week 9 opponent for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2024 season. But we do have breaking news. The Oklahoma City Thunder have taken Nikola Topic with the 12th pick in the 2024 NBA draft. This young man looks like Brandon Beane as a teenager and talks and sounds like Andre the Giant. It is the best possible scenario I can imagine realistically at Big 12. He'll probably be red shirt. He'll have a red shirt. He's probably not going to play this year.
He tore his ACL late in the spring. The thing about this man is essentially just getting a couple years younger version of Josh Giddey, same kind of player. Tall point guard, 6'6", 200+ pound, ball handling point guard player that's trying to set up other guys. Jump shots a work in progress. Like it's literally what they had when they just traded away with Josh Giddey. Now, I mean, do I think his upside's higher than Giddey? For sure. But like what crazy talent that the Thunder get to keep getting away with this. That terrible team.
I love it. So, Cope,
disgusting.
What do you think the quality of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers staff is, Matthew?
Well, it's funny you asked that because T. Smith had a pretty good question here about how losing Canales is going to affect Baker Mayfield. Because, Canales got him going last year. He really got him rolling for the Bucs last year. And I do think losing Dave Canales to be the head coach of the Panthers is going to be kind of a big deal. They replace him with Liam Cohen at offensive coordinator. And boy, as much as I wanted Liam Cohen to come to Kansas City and be part of this coaching staff, it did not go well for him in his second stint with the Los Angeles Rams. When he came back, he had a little bit larger role. Now, I don't think it was all on him. Sean McVay kind of didn't want to coach anymore and was kind of in his feels. So it brought the whole team down, and there was zero offensive innovation for that team. And so I think Liam Cole might have caught a stray because McVay just he's having a mid coaching life crisis or something. But Cohen's back now. And so I do think if you go back and look at what Kentucky has done in the past with Liam Cohen there's some stuff to like and how he can build on Baker Mayfield's success. I think that kind of offense actually plays a lot into what Baker Mayfield can do very well. So I think the match there is good. I just wonder if you're ever going to get a repeat of what they were able to do last year with Canales and Mayfield working together. I think it's a change in offensive structure, even though I think it still kind of matches the same skill set. So offensively, I think they can be set pretty well.
Well, Baker Mayfield and Liam Cohen, like he said, they were in Los Angeles together for 1 year. So that they do have some familiarity with each other that can help them hit the ground running in a tangible way. So there is that to take into consideration for sure. I think Todd Bowles is a rock solid head coach. I think he's a good leader. I think his team loves him. His players love him. And he's a really good defensive mind. And that's always stood the test of time in every place he's been, even when he kind of had a rough stint as the head coach of the Jets. He still had a capable defense there. So I do think this is a pretty quality coaching staff. And I trust that Todd Bowles can pick leadership as well with Dave Canales being out the door. So I do like that staff a little bit. Did you have something else there on the staff?
I mean, no, it's kind of the same thing with their depth chart, right? They seem to be Bruce Arians moves from head coach up into the front office. And I think you can still feel that influence, and that not that he's controlling everything. I don't mean to say that. It's just they seem to be ready for the next step. They always seem to have a plan in place for what happens next. And I think that is how this team has undergone so many changes. after selling their soul, and their entire team was set around building around Tom Brady for a 2 to 3 year stretch run. And after that, they were able to rebound themselves into essentially getting back to the playoffs by winning the division because they seem to always be ready for the next steps. Like, I do think you can't talk about their staff without at least giving a little nod to Arians sitting up there, in the front office, helping pull some of the stuff around. Because I do think that he still plays a pretty big role, at least in how the coaching staff gets set up.
All right, give me a new addition that you're excited about for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Matthew.
They have a couple of them. I think most of them come probably from coming out of the draft. So I'm going to go with the most fun one, Bucky Irving, running back coming out of Oregon, rookie draft pick. Here's the thing, we talk about their depth chart. We didn't mention their running back room a single time because it's bad. It's been really bad. Rachaad White has got a lot of carries, didn't crack 1,000 yards. Their running back room wasn't working out. I still have some hope that Sean Tucker, a draft pick from last year, can maybe pan out to something. But Bucky Irving, you watch him run and play football, and there's just a different level of how he moves. It's like very DeAnthony Thomas-esque, how quick he is, how slippery he is in the open field, how quickly he can get north to south. Now, I know the athletic testing didn't go particularly well for him, but I think you have to look past it when you watch him play. So when you pull that kind of draft pick on day 3, you're more willing to deal with it. But his ability as a receiver, but then a runner for what I think is going to be a good offensive line that has a very potent vertical passing attack, there should be space for Bucky Irving to go. So I think he actually, especially down the stretch, might have a pretty good kind of impact on this offense because of how much space they can create for him, and because that running back room with just a semblance of just acceptable play can probably go pretty far.
Man, Casey's own Rachaad White. We're not just going to show him some love, man. Come on.
Crack 1,000 yards on 500 carries.
Oh, okay. Noted. I think the most interesting ads do wind up being through the draft. It does
3.6 yards per carry.
Hey, KC's own, man. Just show some love for a KC kid. That's all I'm trying to say. Just show him a little bit of love, right?
He had 64 catches. That's impressive.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they really didn't add a ton, and they really didn't lose a ton. They lost Devin White, like you said, and that was the only compensatory eligible free agent that they actually lost. They moved some money around. They kind of largely kept the players that were in-house, and that seems like something that they've kind of tried to do. Jordan Whitehead is back in Tampa Bay, so there is that, like you kind of talked about, another steady presence there. But outside of that, I mean, it was Ben Bredesen, the guard. So there really wasn't a ton of free agent additions to this team. It's definitely running through the draft, and a couple of those interesting players. Jalen McMillan, I think, is a really great kind of potential replacement for a Chris Godwin down the line, as a guy that can kind of play all over, plays in the slot, tough in the middle of the field. And Chris Godwin's on his last year. Like, he's in the last year of his contract. And so he could step in potentially and pair with Trey Palmer and Mike Evans as the new trio if they do let Chris Godwin walk. So Jalen McMillan, I think, is a new addition that is a little bit interesting to me. Graham Barton's just a rock steady offensive line investment along the interior for them. Some would have argued best player available at that time in the draft when they took him. So they went and grabbed, I think some players that make sense both for the long term and the short term of that team. And that's really where they kind of sat free agency out this year and kind of focused on, keeping some of the guys in house rather than really going out of their way to go try to find external help.
Yeah. And I think you keep rolling through it and over again. They do. It's all about the whole thing. It's bringing in young talent to replace guys that are going to be moving out soon. So I think you start looking at the positions they draft. Like, I would assume Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is probably going to be out soon because of the Chris Braswell addition. And they drafted Yaya Diaby, who played well for him last year, and Logan Hall 2 years ago. Like, you can clearly see the guys that they are going to move on from when time comes because of who they draft. So the past 2 years, Trey Palmer, slot wide receiver. Who they go out and draft this year? Jalen McMillan, slot wide receiver. Guess who's probably not getting re-signed next year? Chris Godwin. Like, their new additions are usually usually young players, rookies, drafted players that are going to come in and replace a veteran that's kind of played a role for them.
All right, give me a player to watch, Matthew.
Oh man, I just listed off like 800 of them. But that's besides the point. I am going back to the Yaya Diaby bone because I really do think he was good for them last year. He impressed a lot of people with his, how explosive and good his athletic testing was at the NFL Combine. But you go back and watch his film, and it wasn't always quite as impressive as that athletic testing said it could be. But I think he maximized everything about it last year. Now, he didn't he didn't get as many pressures as you would like for a guy that had the production, like the sack production that he did, right? So he wasn't winning all the time, but when he won, he made it count. And like that's a good thing to have. He's good at finishing as a pass rusher. And so here's a guy that going into his second year, I don't think he was at like his technical ceiling or anything like that. He was winning from his explosiveness and his effort. And now you give him more time in the NFL, you could clearly have a guy that is on, he's not the same type of player, but a similar type of trajectory that George Karlaftis has been on for the Kansas City Chiefs. He could just be getting better, getting a little bit more technical with his moves. And he's not just winning based on purely his explosiveness and his effort. And like there was a big jump from Karlaftis from year 1 to year 2, just in down-to-down consistency and overall impact. Diaby could be the next in line for that. And if he takes that step for the Buccaneers, I think that's going to be huge for them.
I'm gonna go with Kalijah Cansey, another first round pick from last year's draft. Another pick from last year's draft. So he came along strong as the season went on, and he was such a unique prospect because you saw a undersized interior defensive lineman that was a quick winner that maybe didn't have the kind of measurables that you would prefer along the interior of defensive line, and it's kind of one of those sink or swim type things for a guy like that. Either it's going to work out or it's just not going to work out at all. And Kalijah Cansey had a really strong start to his NFL career, showed that he was still going to be able to win with that quickness, with that first step quickness, good hand technique, and really be able to penetrate as a defensive lineman. So I think the arrow's pointing up for him. And when you look at him, getting another year playing in the NFL, another year getting to play alongside Vita Vea, that's a that could be really beneficial to him in the NFL. So I've been very intrigued to see him continue to take that step, because early indications are he's going to be a capable NFL player to good NFL player. And this is a big year and a big step for him. So give me Kalijah Cansey as the player to watch for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, Matthew, how does this team beat the Chiefs?
Okay, I feel like we've been mostly positive about what the Bucs have done. I like the direction of this team. I like the way they position themselves. I like what they are doing going forward. It is a little difficult for me on the surface to see how this team directly stacks up and beats the Chiefs, though, because I don't think that they're overwhelmingly good in any specific way that is good at attacking the Chiefs. Their best spot defensively is going to be their defensive line, but that's kind of playing into the strength of the Chiefs. And outside of Vita Vea, I don't know if they have a stud on that defensive line just yet. And Vita Vea, while excellent, isn't going to completely break the Kansas City Chiefs offensive plan of attack. They're not trying to just run it right up the middle over and over again. So I struggle to see where their defense is going to get a ton of stops against the Chiefs offense. And then you flip to the other side, like, yes, they could very much challenge the Chiefs vertically downfield. And without L'Jarius Sneed, you could maybe have success with Mike Evans, a Godwin, Palmer, having success vertically over the top. But this kind of takes me back to the point that their rushing attack wasn't very good last year. Liam Cohen, new offensive coordinator, comes in. Maybe it gets better, so we will have to see. But Steve Spagnuolo, when an offense he faces is one-dimensional, is excellent. So they will have some kind of plan to stop a vertical passing attack if it's the same type of offense. So it is a little difficult for me to see the path to which the Buccaneers really give the Chiefs a ton of difficulty outside of the Chiefs kind of taking this game lightly and getting caught in a trap. Maybe they do get mossed a couple times by Mike Evans or Godwin or Palmer downfield because the cornerback play is still trying to figure it out. But it seems to be a little bit more of a long shot, despite the fact that I think it's a good team.
It's if they're just caught looking ahead to those Denver Broncos,
Boy.
that's
Scary.
That's really what it is. I think we've been pretty complimentary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I think, they've built a good roster outside of Baker Mayfield, and I think it's a capable roster that can do some damage. But I think it's one of those teams where, yes, there's talent on the roster, and it's there's some good players, but if your quarterback isn't up to snuff, then you can beat a lot of you can beat a lot of teams, you can beat a lot of average and bad teams in the NFL, but you're going to have your struggles against some of those elite tier teams in a different way. And I think that's kind of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. They don't have an elite roster that can mask a quarterback. They have a very good roster that's, with capable quarterback play, can win 9-10 games in the NFL, but maybe isn't going to do well against those top tier teams. And that's the kind of thing Tampa Bay really sits. So yeah, it's, Baker Mayfield playing well. And yeah, I think, the Bucs getting some explosive plays down the field, with some, in the vertical passing game, Baker hitting some of those shots and good things happening there. Like, I do think that's the way that this team potentially is able to sneak up on the Chiefs and give them a run for money. But I mean, this is at Arrowhead too. Like, I don't know, man. It's tough to see. It is tough to see this team being the Chiefs, and this isn't the kind of team that typically sneaks up on the Chiefs. So I think you might even just said that, but this isn't the kind of team that typically sneaks up on them. Who is the Chiefs non-Mahomes MVP?
Oh, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to let you go first this time.
Ooh, the Chiefs non-Mahomes MVP will be. I'll go the entire interior of their offensive line. Like, I do think I just got done talking about Vita Vea, got talking about Kalijah Cansey. I don't care. I'm going to do this. I can do what I want. And I think, the integrity of the pocket from the interior is probably a big factor. I think there's some good bodies. I think there's some good depth on the defensive line for Tampa, but it does start with Vita Vea, who is an immovable object and is very difficult to run the ball against. He was a big factor in that team winning a Super Bowl a few years back. Don't really feel like talking about that. But, yeah, he's a guy you have to have a plan for, especially in the run game. And then putting Kalijah Cansey next to him, a guy that can win quick. If they put him over Trey Smith, he could give Trey Smith some trouble with his initial quickness. So I'm gonna go to players to watch there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm gonna go with the interior offensive line there. So
okay. Well, I guess I should just take like the whole safety room then.
Cool. Fine.
No. I'm going to go with Brian Cook, and more specifically, I guess, than like Justin Reed as much. I think we're going to go Chamari Connor as well. I think those two guys are just going to play deep safety a little bit more, and I do think that this Bucs team is going to be at their most dangerous when they can really threaten teams vertically, and they are going to be allowed to get over the top. And I don't know if I'm ready to say right now the Chiefs are going to be able to stop that vertically down the field. Whether it's Trent McDuffie outside or not, it hasn't been his strong suit yet, playing the ball in the air vertically over his shoulder downfield. So Mike Evans versus Trent McDuffie, as good as McDuffie is, it might be all about ball denial for him. And when the ball is thrown up, it might still go poorly. And then Josh Williams, Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson, whoever it is on the other side, those guys might not be ready for this kind of matchup just yet. And so the safety help being provided by Cook, being provided by Reed a little bit, or Chamari Connor over the top is going to be huge. And then you also got to be careful that you don't let guys split down the middle of the field, because Baker Mayfield is very willing to push the ball vertically. So I do think the safeties in this game are going to play a big role. If you are protecting yourself from the deep ball, that also means safety's got to be quick to come downhill, because they're going to have their eyes looking forward. They are going to be the guys that are going to be coming downhill to make stops. They're going to have to tackle well. So it could be a game that maybe it doesn't always look pretty defensively, but the safeties could be a big difference of the Bucs scoring 20 points versus scoring 40, just in how they are able to help a younger, less experienced cornerback room. So Kent picks the entire interior offensive line. I picked the entire safety room. You guys got to let us know who you think the non-Mahomes MVP of this game is going to be. Do you think it's Travis Kelce going up against Levante David and KJ Britt, who maybe aren't great in coverage right now? Or do you guys have a different non-Mahomes MVP? Please let us know in the comments so we can see who you guys think it's going to be.
What a way to sneak that in. Guess the line on this game, Matthew.
Is it at home or on the road?
It's at home. Monday Night Football.
Sure. Okay, that's right. I remember that now. Okay. Oh, we got a Chris Jones for the non. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Chris Jones is always a nice safe bet, right? Like he has a big game. It's always going to go well, but I think pushing the pocket on a Baker Mayfield makes sense. I think the line for this game is the Bucs didn't make the playoffs. I think it'd be something like 5.5.
I was going to say like 6.5.
Yeah. I was giving him a little bit of respect.
I think there is still some respect back in there, but it's a home game and all that stuff. Before we get out of here, with the 13th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings have taken Devin Carter out of Providence, and then the
setting up great for the Heat.
The Portland Trailblazers have taken Bub Carrington.
Never mind. The Heat have shot themselves in the foot, and they did not take Connect. So
Dalton Connect is falling.
Yeah, that's
furiously.
Okay. So we did ask you guys, put your non-Mahomes MVPs in the chat. We'll go through and look at some of those. We also would have to ask you guys, if you're liking the show, enjoy, like, comment, but please leave us 5-star reviews. You say whatever you want. You can talk about how fluffy my hair is. Look at this. This is not curly anymore. Now we're just fluffy because we're back home. Not quite as humid here. So there's not as much curls. Yeah, it's just fluff now. That's the issue. It's just fluff now. Leave a comment about how fluffy my hair is, about how great Ken's hair is, whatever you want, like the show, dislike us, but just, they can be 5 stars. Just, let us know that you enjoy us or don't, but leave 5 stars. We much appreciate it. It allows other people to find it, and that's very helpful for us.
And we're going to allow you to watch the rest of the NBA draft. That is going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you all so much for listening, watching. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Can't believe the Thunder drafted Giddey 2.0.
Ooh.